Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. I hope everyone had a great Ramadan. Eid Mubarak to all of you. Today, I'm joined by a lovely sister named Jaquasia, based in Virginia in the US. Assalamualaikum, sister. Eid Mubarak. How are you?
Walaikum salam and Eid Mubarak. I'm good, alhamdulillah. Very excited for this live and for this conversation.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited. I mean, I've seen your content come up on my feed, and your content is a dose of a much needed positivity, from a reverse perspective, especially at a time in America where I think, there's all kinds of crazy right-wing racism and Islamophobia that's being normalized. And I do want to speak about all of that. But first, I want to sort of speak about you. It would be interesting to know about your life before you accepted Islam. So could you please share about your previous religious upbringing in the States as a Jehovah's Witness, and why didn't it resonate with you in the long run?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I grew up Jehovah Witnesses. My whole family, especially on my mom's side, they're Jehovah Witness. And then on my dad's side, they're like Christian. Jehovah Witnesses, the best way I like to think of it is like kind of like a denomination of Christianity. But there are some key differences that I believed growing up. Like, for one, I feel like they didn't put as much emphasis on Jesus as like Christians do.
Mhm.
And then like I feel like some of the beliefs are more similar to Islam than Christianity in a sense of like you're supposed to be modest. Say if you were to have someone you're interested in, like for dates and things, they're supposed to be chaperoned and things like that. So
Mm.
basically, I grew up in this religion. I didn't really start to question things until 2020. This was the time that I graduated high school and, my first time being an adult. So I was like reflecting back on my childhood, reflecting back on my beliefs. And I realized some things in the faith just didn't really make sense to me. They didn't resonate with me. So as I went into college, then that's when I started to like, think about stuff, reevaluate my life. And
Mhm.
actually, my first 2 years of college, I was not religious. I didn't say that I was any religion, but I did always believe in God and I always tried my best. But I didn't find anything that actually like resonated with me. So I was not religious like my first 2 years of college. And then what happened was my junior year, I was in this scholarship, and actually my scholarship advisor, she had us come together because it was like a cultural kind of scholarship. So like we would come together for different groups, even like Black History Month, Hispanic History Month, like things like that. So we actually got together for Eid, and it
Mhm.
was my first time being able to sit down with Muslims and
Mhm.
actually like have a conversation, talk about the religion, talk about the beliefs, talk about Ramadan. And this
Mhm.
was actually like 3 years ago. So when I had that conversation, like being able to actually talk to Muslims, like and understand more about Islam, it really like opened a door for me because everything that they were saying, I feel like made sense. Like
Mhm.
I think I could understand like where they were coming from, and I felt like this is like the right way to go. So that just kind of started me to like learn more about Islam, explore more, and luckily, alhamdulillah, like I went to a school, even though it was PWI, which is like, predominantly white, even though it was predominantly white, there was a pretty good, like, I would say Muslim community and
Mhm.
people that I could come to talk, and to learn. And
Mhm.
then actually later that year in the summertime, so I would say about 3 months later, that's when I took my shahada and
Wow,
everything
mashallah.
because yeah, because things just like it just made sense to me. And even growing up Jehovah Witness, I would say that there's more similarities to Islam than Christianity in my
Mhm.
perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like how it went.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Jehovah's Witnesses, the Jehovah Witness denomination in Christianity that I find interesting is what you said, that they don't believe in the Christian Trinity, where Jesus, peace be upon him, is given God status, which as Muslims we don't believe either. And there is a lot of sort of similarities, like you said, between the two. And I find that with most faiths outside of Islam, another thing I find is that people are very casual about their dedication, their worship, the practice of their religion according to their scriptures. And that's not a critique, it's just a simple and honest observation, when comparing Muslims to followers of different religions. I mean, we're very dedicated to our faith and our worship, and if you're a practicing Muslim.
Yeah.
And
I
it would
feel
be,
like
yeah, please go on.
and also as a revert, that was something that was so evident to me about like Muslims. I can tell that like I feel like Muslims actually practice like the practice is different. Because
Mm,
like I would say the same for all Abrahamic religions. Like we have a lot of similar beliefs, but the practice is different. And I
mhm.
felt like the way that Muslims showed up was like you could tell it's a relationship between them and God. I
Yeah.
didn't feel that it was performative or anything like that. Like I felt like people put in their best effort because they wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Did you ever look at any other faiths? Because it'd be interesting to know if you explored any other faiths before you chose Islam. Did you think about anything before you took your Shahada? Like, what actually led you to accept Islam over anything else?
Yes, so I actually did explore like Christianity before I actually chose Islam. And I would say Christianity actually even brought me closer to Islam because so the concept of the Holy Trinity, this was something completely foreign to me as a Jehovah Witness. Like when people were explaining it to me, it didn't really make sense, and I tried my best to understand. I asked like, some of the highest pastors, I asked a lot of people, and I felt like no one could explain it to me in a way that made sense. And I got this similar feeling that I actually got growing up as a Jehovah Witness, where it's like, I feel like I can't question this, and I feel like these people are just going on faith. And if I feel like my question is almost like a sign of me not having faith. So I had a sense of like uncomfortability. Things weren't resonating with me. I didn't quite understand it, and no one could really explain it in a way to me that actually made sense. And then like not too long after, that's when we had the meeting, with my scholarship, and I feel like Islam is just so straightforward. Like it's so like direct, and I feel like that's something that just really resonated with me. And then even the whole idea of, I think it's fitra.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even the whole idea that like everyone has this innate goodness, and the fact that like everyone is born Muslim, everyone is born like knowing the kind of like right way innately, and then like throughout conditioning, things get changed. And I feel like this is something I always subconsciously like believed in my brain. Like I always believed that people were good, and I believed that like I knew the right way, but like I just had to come back to it, in a way. So I would say that like, yeah, even though I did kind of explore other religions, like nothing resonated. And I feel like Islam is just so straightforward, so simple, that it was such an easy choice for me. Like from that first meeting where I actually got to sit down with Muslims and actually like talk, it made me feel like, okay, like I knew like deep down, like, okay, this actually makes sense. Like I can see, this makes sense.
And I love that, because I think sometimes as Muslims, we don't think that talking to a non-Muslim, how much it can actually impact them, just telling them about the religion or just telling them about your way of life. And I think that is really important as Muslims. You don't have to be online giving dawah. You could literally give dawah in the office, or if you're dropping your kids off to school or nursery or whatever, and then you can have that conversation with a non-Muslim, and it might lead them to then, like going on and doing more research and thinking, this is something that I could think about doing. And it's a big thing. And alhamdulillah, sister, for the Muslims that were around you at that time, they obviously helped you, lead you to the right path and to the truth, which is amazing. And generally when I speak to reverts, they say that they had decided they were Muslim long before they took their shahada. Some people actually may even delay their shahada because they feel like they need to be 100% sure, or they feel like they need to reach like a higher spiritual level before they make it official, or they need to get rid of some bad habits, or if they're sinning like drinking alcohol, they need to sort that out before they take their shahada. But no Muslim, whether they're a revert or born into the faith, is perfect, right? Everybody is got their flaws. Our connection to God depends upon our daily actions and how open our hearts are, and everybody as a Muslim is building on that spirituality and that connection every single day. Even if you're the best Muslim, or you're the one that's struggling, everybody is building. And I personally love hearing shahada stories, because it's something that I'll never experience. So when I hear about it, I get to live through it. Other people, I get to live through the experience with other people. So can you describe sort of the day of your shahada as well as the lead up to it? I mean, you said it took you 3 months, so you weren't in any time. You were like ready to go.
Yeah. So actually, like I took my shahada like for the first time alone by myself. Wow. And I was actually in my nana's house, visiting over the summer because college had let out, so I was visiting my nana's house. And one night I was just watching videos like on Islam, or like I was actually watching like a revert story or something like that. And I just remember the lady in the video, she was just saying that like she got to a point where she was like, I have to take my shahada, because if I die today, then I wouldn't have taken my shahada. And I think this actually like it hit me to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. Like, I don't know how much time I have, I need to do it while I can. So then I just did it by myself in my room for the first time, just to like make it official with myself, and also like because I never know. I felt like I should do it because I was convicted. I knew like what I should do. I knew that I was Muslim. I just needed to say the words. So
Mm.
I said the words, and then I would say probably a few weeks later in the summertime, still in the summertime, that's when I came back to where I went to school, which is in Blacksburg. So I went back to Blacksburg, and there was this one really nice lady. I don't want to say her name, but like this really nice lady that I met at the masjid, and she actually helped me to take my shahada like officially at the masjid. It was just me, her, and I feel like a few other girls. We just sat like in the circle, and they helped me to say my shahada, and
Wow.
it was just that simple, like. But I knew before what I wanted to do, and doing it alone, I feel like really helped me to feel brave enough to be like public with it, especially like with my family and everything. Because I knew I was making that choice for myself, for my own soul, for my own spirit. And then like to have like a community like waiting for me, a community of people that like supported me, uplifted me, it really helped like along the journey.
Yeah,
And yeah.
that's amazing. How did you feel different? I mean, how did you feel when you prayed for the first time, when you read Quran? Is there a difference? Well, obviously you won't know, but for me, I've always grown up doing it. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to know if you felt differently when you first stood on a prayer mat, when you first read the Quran, after you took your Shahada.
I felt so light. Like I just remember everything being so like happy. Like I felt so satisfied, so content. I'm like, this is what I should be doing. Like I just felt so satisfied. And every time I was able to go to the masjid and like pray, even just like, casual prayers in the middle of the day, it felt so good to me to be a part of something like bigger than me, something where I felt like purpose in
Mm-hmm.
something. And it gave me a community of people that I know have like good intentions, kind hearts, that want to do the right thing, people that I know like would take me like on the straight path, or at least like try their best.
Yeah.
My first time praying, it was amazing. I remember seeing like the position that really got me was sujood, like seeing how people bow their heads. I'm like, this is how we should approach God. Even
Mm-hmm.
the fact that like we have to make wudu, we have to be covered, like this is the humility, the like discipline. I feel like this is how people should approach God. So everything from that summer just felt so light. It felt like very much like what I was supposed to be doing. It just felt good. I was very satisfied, very content, and like excited.
Alhamdulillah. That is beautiful to hear. Mashallah, sister, it's a beautiful story, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your efforts. It takes a lot of courage to make such a big change in your life, especially when you're coming from another religion like Jehovah's Witness, and from that family, everybody is a Jehovah's Witness in your family. So, like I said, previously, there are obviously overlaps in some beliefs and prophets between Islam and Christianity, but there are also like glaring differences, in theology between the two faiths. They're not the same. And a lot of the time, for reverts, their family members may not know about Islam beyond what they've seen in the media or on social media. And hopefully, inshallah, that was not the case for you.
Mm-hmm.
You did touch upon your family then. How did they then react when you told them that you'd become Muslim? Were they accepting? Did you face resistance at all?
Mm-hmm. Well, just a little context. I'm the oldest, so
Right.
I'm the oldest of nine. I
Wow.
have 8 younger
Inshallah.
siblings. And I'm also a first generation student. So I was the first one to kind of like go away to university.
Mm.
During my time in university, I did a lot of things for the first time, such as like traveling internationally and domestically. Like, so I think that throughout my experience in college, my mom had kind of got a sense of, okay, she's doing new things. Like, what's next? Like, okay, you come home for break. What did you do this time? It's like, I feel like she got kind of conditioned to know that I was like changing and growing.
Mm.
So when I came back that summer, and like, I also put the hijab on fairly quickly because I wanted to be a practicing Muslim. I wanted to try my best.
Mm.
So I came back home, and she's just like, oh, so you're Muslim? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay. It's
Well,
okay with her. It was okay with her. My siblings, that like with my brothers, they laughed at me because they're like, "What's that on your head?" Haha. They just laugh because they're like brothers. My nana, she was okay with it. She was just like, okay. Especially because I feel like my nana got a little more insight to like the 2 years where I was like non-religious. So she saw me kind of like trying to go on a spiritual journey. You know, she saw me try to be more insightful and things like that. So when I became Muslim, I think it was fine for her. I only had a little bit of like friction resistance with some of the older members of my family, like some aunties that are more practicing Jehovah Witnesses, because also like for people that are Jehovah Witness, they actually are not supposed to really be in close connection with people that are disfellowshipped. So that's when you leave the faith. And actually, like my Nana, she is someone that is disfellowshipped. So like her like our aunts, which are kind of like her siblings, they don't actually talk to her because she's disfellowshipped. I guess for me and my siblings, we were never officially baptized, so I'm not like disfellowshipped. But since I did come into the house like a different religion, one of my aunts, like as soon as I came in, she kind of just felt the need to throw the Bible at me in a sense, you know, where it's just like she's reading scripture to me, trying to like, and her eyes guide me on the straight path, you know. She's trying to like help me to understand. But beyond that conversation, I kind of like made it clear, you know, like I'm an adult, I'm satisfied with my decision, you know. And beyond that, it hasn't been brought up again, and there's no tension between us. I feel like maybe at that time she felt a spiritual obligation to try or to just at least say something. So after she said it, I would say like truly our relationship is still fine. Like I go there and it's fine. Like we can still hang out like we used to. We will talk. Maybe sometimes they don't understand the way I dress or like some of my beliefs, but yeah, we haven't really had deep in-depth conversations yet, but I can say that there is no tension yet. No tension now.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I mean, I'm glad to hear that your family were so supportive in your decision to become Muslim, your immediate family. And I always just say, you know, if there are issues or misunderstandings between reverts and family members, that, you know, in time they will see how Islam is working in your life in positive ways. They'll see that you are serious about it, and family members do usually come round. And inshallah, you will be a gateway for them to accept Islam and to accept the religion, and that would be a beautiful thing. I'm sure that you would, inshallah, you would definitely be, inshallah, that is your dua, and my dua for you and your family. But going beyond family and people, family in general, American history is sort of intertwined with Islam and Muslims, right? So I've heard like areas like in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, there's places like Chicago, and I think more recently Michigan, and they all have like sort of prominent and thriving Muslim communities, which was surprising to me, to be honest, because I don't expect that, right? And I think the same could be said about Virginia, where you're from. That it's not just, it's just like I said, we just don't hear about it, right? It's not something that's talked about or widely known. So what is the Islamic community like in Virginia? You touched upon that as well when you were talking about taking your shahada in the mosque with a group of girls. So what's it like?
Yeah, it's actually like very interesting. So right now I recently moved to like Northern Virginia area, which is close to like DC, which is the nation's capital, and like Maryland. And we usually call that area like the DMV. So I would say like in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, this area has a really good amount of Muslims. It's super diverse. Like if I leave the house, there's at least like, you know, 3 mosques within like a 15-minute radius. There's like events, like we just had like the Eid festival. We have like, you know, Sahur Fest. I don't know if you've seen stuff about that, but
That's amazing.
Yeah, we have like a lot of things in the like Northern Virginia area. So where my family is from, it's called like Tidewater, Virginia, or Hampton Roads. It's closer to the beach, so it's a bit further down south. This area does not have as many Muslims. You will not see it as commonly, maybe in areas that are like more densely populated. But actually, like the area that my family's from, it's almost a bit more rural, you know, almost a bit more like, it's like a mix of rural and suburb. And then where I went to school, it's in Blacksburg, Virginia. And this is actually in the mountains, and it's super rural there. Besides the university, the surrounding areas are not diverse at all. Like it's mostly white people, but the university brings the diversity. So like because of the school, there is like a good Muslim population. But I would say that all of the Muslims in that area are probably either from the school or definitely like immigrated to the area and are looking for like the next step, you know? So yeah, it's actually like a very wide range. I would say right now I'm in like the Northern Virginia area, and this is probably the one of the best areas for Muslims. Like most of my coworkers are even hijabi. Like most of my coworkers are Muslim. I work at a school, so like,
Mhm.
you know, like you go out in the street, you will see people in the niqab, you will see people like in full hijab. Like it's fine. There's so many mosques in the area. Like I said, we have a lot of events. So yeah, this area is fine. It's diverse, and there is a good amount of Muslims.
Wow, that's amazing. Mashallah, that makes a big difference, I think, as well. Not just as a born Muslim, but I could imagine as a revert, because you're not as like, you don't stick out if you revert, especially as a woman revert, because you wear hijab. So you do sort of stick out, right? And
Yeah.
that must be nice and peaceful to know that you've got a community and that there isn't someone that's going to stare at you in the street. And like I said, it's surprising for me because, I mean, from what I've always noticed, there's always been sort of a prejudice, right, between Muslims towards Muslims in America, going as far back as Malcolm X, and then you had the invasion of Iraq, and then more recently, it's increased even more due to the situation in Palestine, where our brothers and sisters are being badly oppressed.
Yeah.
So it's a total different picture that you are showing us, which is nice. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and bless all our brothers and sisters in Virginia and in America as a whole and across the world and ease their hardship. I've never actually visited the US. My husband has lived there previously. So if I was to visit, I mean, North Virginia seems like a good option now.
Yeah,
Now
it would
you
be great. It would be great. And I actually think it's super interesting how I feel like so many like radical movements, so many like different thought processes are happening so close to DC, so
Mm,
close to the nation's capital. Like
mm,
I can drive to DC in 20 minutes. And I told you like this area is like full of Muslims, very diverse. But
yeah.
first, like even in DC, there's a lot of Muslims. But for
Mm,
some reason, it's just like at that Capitol building, in that White House, it's like the mindset is completely different. It's
yeah.
like they don't even go outside or something, you know, because literally in the area, it's super diverse, so many different groups.
Mm,
Even like the stores are different languages. It's not just like all this kind of mindset that I feel like that's pushed, and especially like American media, you know? It's
mm,
like some people, I feel like if you just go outside in America, you will see what it's really like. It's not like how it's always painted online.
mm. And that must be frustrating as a Muslim in America to see your country portrayed in that way and knowing that you or the majority of Muslims don't agree with how things are being panned out, right?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's actually horrible. I would say a lot of Americans don't agree with a lot of what American government and administration actually does.
Mm.
And a lot of Americans are suffering like firsthand, you know, from the things that are happening. But I mean, there's only so much people can do. There's only so much someone can do. We all have families to take care of, but it's very interesting, you know, even
Yeah.
with how Trump is forcing, you know, some people to go back into the office that work for the government. These people maybe live so far from their work, and now they have to either move, relocate their whole entire families, or they lose their job. They lose their livelihoods. Not to mention like all the jobs that he's cutting, like all of these like offices, administrators, they go from like 100 to 3 people. It's just
Wow.
like insane the things that are happening, and it's really unfair to like the average American. And I feel like the average American does not agree with a lot of the things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not somewhere that I would move to. It's somewhere that I would visit. But yeah, I don't think I would move to America because it doesn't seem like it's on a good path for Muslims or for generally people. And it's the UK is similar in that way as well. I don't think the UK government has a British citizen's best interest at heart at all, or a Muslim's interest at heart. I think a lot of these governments are very much based on what they want, and that's it. But let's move away from politics. It's a very serious conversation. Let's shift over to the Islamic sort of dress code for women. So in particular, wearing the hijab, like you said, you put it on really quickly, mashallah. And I think some non-Muslim people in the West see dressing modestly as a form of oppression, which I don't agree with at all. I'm sure you don't either. And to be completely honest, some Muslim women also struggle with dressing modestly. Even practicing Muslim women, I've spoken to so many that do struggle to put the hijab on. And I think it depends on things like environment, culture, and sometimes a lack of religious dedication, right? But you seem to have embraced it like a duck to water. So can you please share about how you adjusted to wearing the hijab and dressing modestly, and what is it that you enjoy about it so much?
Gotcha. So, like, something that attracted me to Islam in the first place was the fact that through my lived experiences and through my life, I can see the value in a lot of the Islamic principles that are taught. And the same can be said for like modesty. Growing up, I'm African American, and I grew up, in a hot area like near the beach. So people, you can just wear whatever you want. From a young age, I could wear whatever I want, short shorts, like have my arms out, anything, like it's fine. And I guess throughout time, as I started to grow up, I could definitely see the kind of attention that would attract, especially from like males. And I
Yeah.
could see the way that it affected how people viewed me.
Mm.
I don't agree that people should be judged by the way that they look, but in reality, humans are judgmental and humans will judge based off of what they see.
Mhm.
So when I found Islam, when I started to learn more about the values of modesty and why like Allah prescribed us to be modest, everything just made sense to me. I'm like, this makes sense. Like I should protect myself. I shouldn't, put everything on display because it is something special that should be held at a very high regard and held very specially and intimately between me and like my loved ones, like my family. Inshallah, one day my husband. So I guess like wearing the hijab was an easy choice because I understood the value of it and because my lived experience is like I wasn't wearing the hijab for like most of my life, so I understand what it is like. And it's not something that I miss, it's not something that I crave. I still feel beautiful regardless of what I'm wearing. So it's just like I don't need to always have everything on display. I actually feel better knowing that like hopefully Allah is like pleased with the way that I dress. And I'm not perfect in my hijab. Like I know I don't do a lot of things perfectly, but it's just that I feel good knowing that I can put forth the effort and be better than I was 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's just making that first step, right? And then improving on that. And I always say you can't force someone to wear the hijab. When sisters feel it in their hearts, that's when they're ready. But the responsibility, I think, is also on parents for born Muslims and for reverts once they have children, especially mothers. Because if you normalize it for your daughters from an early age in the household, then naturally they will follow suit. And you see that all the time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, whom He wills. And we've seen newly reverted sisters like Kea Sakura from Japan and Brittany Renner from the US who had very public adult themed pasts, but they've accepted Islam and they've embraced dressing modestly also. And it seems to have a positive impact in their lives. And that's amazing to see women like that are also embracing hijab. And it's like you said, people look at you differently. People talk to you differently, especially men. There's a lot more respect, I think, when a man talks to you if you're dressing modestly. And I honestly think that Islam benefits women so much, especially in the West, especially in the era that we're living in, where there's so much less emphasis on God in general. It's good that women like us are representing God in a way, right? Because when you've got a hijab on, you're representing Islam and you're representing a faith. So yeah, can I ask you as a Muslim revert, what are the positive changes Islam has brought to your life compared to before you were Muslim?
Hmm. I would say that like overall, I feel like I have a sense of peace in what I do because I know that like I have good intentions. And like at the beginning and end of every day, I try to come back to like my intentions and trying to be a good person, trying to wish people well, trying to like show up well, help people as I can. And I just like that like my faith is so in alignment with how I feel on the inside. It's my faith is so in alignment with how I know I should be that it's just like one of the things where I feel like my life can be more synchronized. Everything can just line up together and make sense. Because I feel like a lot of times people will be living in such contradiction that it leads them to being like almost like confused. So I feel like for me, I feel like my faith and my religion is so in alignment with who I am as a person that it just makes me feel like good. At the end of every day, like even if things aren't perfect, like things happen, situations happen, I always have this reminder in the back of my head, like just be patient and persistent in prayer, just try your best. Like
Mhm.
every day, I feel like I can be so aware that Allah is watching me that it will just push me to try my best, push me to try to be the best person I can be, and to always also like evaluate myself, to check my intentions, to be able to reflect on my actions, and inshallah be redirected to like the right path, you know, when I do go astray. So it's just like I feel like it's just given me so much peace, and it's made me like even more of like a patient person. I feel like Islam really like aims to purify the soul, like to, you know, make you a better person inside out, like purify your intentions, purify your actions, your words, your thoughts, who you surround yourself with, everything. I feel like on all levels of my life, I feel like it has a positive impact on. And overall, I can just say like it just gives me peace. I'm truly satisfied with like my faith and the things that I get to do in my faith.
Mashallah, that's amazing. And I'm so glad that you found that and that you feel like that, because that is true Islam right there. And I think that if you're a practicing Muslim and you're doing it right, and I say that because there are Muslims out there that pick and choose, right? They pick and choose from the faith. And I don't think that you can do that with Islam. You know, you're on the right path and you should follow the right path. Of course, we don't want to deter anyone away from Islam, but if you do it right and you do it properly and you follow it like you're supposed to, then you will feel a lot of peace. And that is what Islam is about. It's a very peaceful religion, and it's about being the best version of yourself. And I'm so glad that you feel like that. Alhamdulillah, sister. You know, again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your efforts and give you even more success. It's beautiful that you feel like that.
Inshallah. Thank you.
I also noticed from your content that you've taken a few trips, and you said that you've traveled internationally, domestically, but I know you've gone to different Islamic countries across the world. Like I said, some before you were even Muslim. And I love visiting Islamic countries because I fit right in with my religion and culture and halal food everywhere. It's just easier to navigate. And I get to experience what it's like to not be in a majority, not being a minority for a change, you know, being the majority where everybody is Muslim and you're not like the one person that isn't. So you've been to UAE, Senegal, Turkey. Could you please briefly describe those experiences and what were they like for you?
Well, first, I just want to say that like every Muslim country that I've been to so far has been so different. Yet I can tell that like the connecting force, the basis is Islam.
Yeah.
First, I went to Senegal, which is in West Africa, and they are a Muslim country. I got to witness Juma. This was before I reverted, so I didn't know anything about anything, but I got to witness like Juma, and it was beautiful to see everybody and they're all white. Like everyone is in the streets ready for Juma. And it was just like a beautiful country, a beautiful like community. The people there are so kind, so loving. The next Muslim country that I went to, I want to say it was Qatar. Qatar. And Qatar is, oh yeah, Qatar is an amazing country. They're more conservative. And I think like seeing the difference between a country like Senegal and Qatar, it's very interesting because they're both Muslim countries, but the way that people show up is much different, you know? In Qatar, I feel like they're definitely more conservative in the dress. Like most women are wearing all black in the niqab. Most guys are just wearing all white thobes, like most of the time. So I thought that that was pretty cool. I also really enjoyed the culture. This was like the first Gulf country I've ever been to, so it was pretty cool. After I went to Dubai. Dubai is a little more like liberal, you know, not as conservative, but there are some conservative parts. I thought it was nice. I love Dubai. Sometimes I feel weird saying that I love Dubai because of the things that they do, but you know, like I did enjoy my time in the country. Afterwards, I went to Turkey, which is like they're Muslim, but they're also European. So I thought it was very interesting to see Turkey because I would see like hijabis smoking in the streets. And I know like cigarettes is very, you know, a lot of Muslim countries, they smoke cigarettes, but I just thought that that was something I never saw before. So it was very interesting because even though they are a Muslim country, they're like very European, very Western, you know, in the way that people are on the streets. So it's very interesting to see how Muslim countries look very different. And I think for me, it gives me a sense of comfort because it shows me that Islam doesn't have to look one way. And it also allows me to kind of give myself grace just to see that like we're all Muslim, people are all trying their best, but no one is perfect, you know, no one can show up in the perfect way. And yeah, every Muslim country that I went to though, people were very nice, very warm and welcoming. No complaints on that end.
That's amazing. I mean, I've also been to the UAE and I've been to Turkey on more than one occasion. I really enjoy visiting those places, and I've always wanted to visit Senegal, inshallah, well soon. In Turkey, the UAE are both great places to visit, great places to go as a family. We just got back recently from Saudi Arabia. We've just done our Umrah. And for
Mashallah.
me, yeah, for me, that was even better than the UAE. I think that was the best experience that I've ever had. We went as a family. I'd never been before, so we took our two daughters with us. They're really young, and it was just nice to do Umrah together as a family and to do it all for the first time. It was a beautiful experience. Inshallah, we'll visit Qatar soon. That's definitely on our list. I've got family out there, so it'll be really good to see what it's like out there and to see for a potential maybe permanent move, inshallah. Have you thought about doing Umrah or thought about going to Mecca or Medina?
Yeah, of course. Like, I really like last summer, that was like when I went to Dubai, when I went to Turkey and Qatar. So like I did want to try to do Umrah, but unfortunately, like I underestimated the cost, I underestimated the logistics.
Yeah.
Inshallah, I'll be able to do Umrah though. I do know like quite a few people that have been.
Yeah.
I just recognize my need for support if I were to go. This isn't something I could do alone. This is something that I need help with. So, inshallah, it's just about the logistics, being able to do it. But of course, I want to do it in my lifetime. Inshallah, I'll be able to.
No, inshallah, Allah will call you soon and you'll be able to go and experience it. It's definitely a different experience, and your faith it's just the connection is just lifted so much higher than you expect, and you come back just desperate to go, wanting to go back again. It's just, yeah, worldly things do take over, when you're in a place that is dedicated to just one thing, and that is your relationship with Allah. It's a completely different experience, and then when you come back you realize how much the dunya does affect our daily life. Yeah, it's sad at times. But yes, we briefly touched on sort of discrimination that Muslims face in the West when we were talking about America earlier on, especially as women. And I think that the brothers actually get the worst of it. And I think Muslim men are demonized using, the questionable actions of a few bad apples who don't even practice Islam, and they're labeled as all being the same, which is unfair and a form of discrimination. And the reality is that most Muslim men live pretty normal lives, right? And in the West, there's a trend of disrespecting men in general, which is not the norm in Islamic countries at all. I mean, you've been, and men are held in very high regard in Islamic countries, as are women. And you made a very interesting video about the emasculation of men in modern times that we live in. Why is this negative, and how should we as Muslim women in the West address this?
So just like a little context, I come from a single mother. So I was raised by just my mom. And as an African American, unfortunately, like it is kind of normalized in our culture to have single mothers. And I can tell you firsthand the mindset that a lot of these mothers can have is just that, like, I don't need a man, or I could do it better. Like, what do I need him for, So I feel like when I made that video, it was me kind of just like opening up to the realization that partially Islam also gave me that men are valuable, and men have value beyond just like the surface level things that people would associate men with, and also the fact that men are often kind of emotionally neglected, and their accomplishments are often like looked down upon. And I guess it kind of just like, as Muslim women and as like people in general, like we should try our best to support each other, to uplift each other, and to not like degrade each other and degrade each other's like efforts. And I just feel like sometimes, at least like growing up, I would see women kind of doing that a lot to men, and it led to what I call demasculization of men, in a sense where they kind of lose their power. They feel like, oh, well, what can I do? Why should I even try? And I feel like that's why we see, like, at least in the West, like quite a few men kind of like trending in like laziness or just like not wanting to do anything because they feel underappreciated, because they don't see the value, because people don't make them feel valuable. So I guess what at least what I want to do is to try my best to like encourage men to recognize their accomplishments, and to also like not over criticize them, because that's something I noticed in my community that leads men to losing their power, being over criticized, being like only like reprimanded for like the things that they do wrong. So yeah, I mean, that video, it was more so just like, it's like I came to a realization, like I opened my eyes and I was like, wow, I can see that, like, dang, men sometimes aren't actually treated the best. Like, it's just, they're kind of just treated like, you should provide this, this, and this. You need to do this, this, and this. And if you can't do it, then like you mean nothing. And I feel like that's not like a good way to be.
No, I agree. And it was really refreshing to see you do a video like that because, like I said, a lot of people don't speak about that as an issue. And, you know, you do need, I mean, it's interesting that you've come from a single parent household, a single mum, and yet you still have that view towards men. And that is a beautiful thing because yes, single mothers can do it. Yes, single fathers can do it. But there is a reason why Allah put both together to have children because you do need both.
Absolutely.
And you need, you know, the patience and the kindness and the peace from the mother, but you also need the tough and the protection from the father, right? You need both to thrive. And I think, like you said, you know, I think that as Muslim women, we do fall into the trap of hating our men and seeing them as competition sometimes. And I think for the men, sometimes either you have men that are just too submissive towards the women, or I think you have men that are too dominant towards our women, right? We were struggling now to find men that are in the middle, and then we have women that are very dominant or very submissive, right? And again, we don't have the middle, and I think that's maybe where we sometimes have the clash.
Yeah.
So I think instead we should stand up for our brothers, you know, especially against Islamophobes throwing shade on them. If you see our brothers being attacked by anti-Islam people, like definitely get in there and defend them, right? They're Muslims, they're part of the Ummah. Our brothers, fathers, sons, and husbands, you know, they deserve our loyalty. And I think it's counterproductive to take sides with people who are either liberal or anti-Muslim in their outlook against our brothers. And what does that gain? I mean, I understand if a small minority of non-practicing men do something immoral or criminal, then yes, you know, we should call it out, we should condemn it. But in general, we have to defend our men. They're not all the same, and we have to defend them against people who are motivated by the hatred of Islam. So it's interesting that you made that video, and I really think that it did resonate with a lot of people, and it's important to talk about these things. Speaking of Muslim men, you talked about, inshallah, getting married one day. Are there plans of marriage for you soon, inshallah? What traits are you looking for in a future husband? Have you thought about how you're going to go about it now? Because obviously, I'm assuming you're wanting to have a Muslim.
Of course.
Yeah.
Inshallah, I can get married soon. I'm
Yeah.
only 23. I would like to get married, inshallah, by the time I'm 25.
Inshallah.
You know, some things are in motion, but I'm the kind of person where I don't like to say things are done until they're done. So, inshallah, you know, I can be able to be married soon. I think that some of the traits I look for in a man are, for one, like that Islam leads him, like that he's led by Islam and that he has a really good connection with Allah. I say that first because I feel like when disagreements happen, when things happen, we should always resort back to our foundation. And I think that Islam should be the foundation. So it's really important for me that
Yes.
like my husband is connected to the faith and that he's practicing. The next kind of thing that is important to me, well, the next things that are important to me are kindness. Of course, I want a kind man. I don't want someone that is approaching me in a way that is harsh, talking to me aggressively. And I want someone that's always going to try to see the best in me and give me grace, because no human is perfect. And I feel like a marriage is one of those things that, like, oh, I feel like why they say, this is just my theory, I'm not sure if it's true, but I feel like why they say that it's like when you get married, you complete half your deen is because in a marriage, you're tested so much. This is like the time where you're going to show the most patience, where you're going to show the most forgiveness, where you're going to like really be able to refine your soul because of the way that you have to treat your spouse, because you're going to see them through all phases, inshallah, through many decades, through all the everything in life. And this will be the relationship that you're probably tested with the most. That's why I think it's like why they say, you know, it's half your deen, because it really does, inshallah, purify your soul.
Yeah.
So I want someone, of course, that is like kind, giving, generous, someone that, of course, accepts me because, you know, I have a big family. I come from a single mother and I am a revert. you know, so this is maybe something completely foreign to who my husband might be.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. And of course, someone that I'm attracted to, someone that's kind. We'll see what Allah gives me.
Yeah. Yeah, inshallah. I mean, that is a big dua right there.
Yeah.
Inshallah, Allah accepts it. And of course, I mean, deen is the most important traits in a husband, right? And as that then by default means a man will take responsibility for supporting and guiding his family in accordance with Islam. You know, inshallah, you find a good husband who provides for you financially, gives you beautiful children, loves you from the heart, makes you happy. And that's, I think, what every woman wants, right? Even if you're not Muslim, you just want a man that is going to protect you and love you and care for you. And I'm sure it's the other way around similarly for men. That's and I love what you said about marriage, you know, completing half of our deen and what that actually means. And that is a lovely way to think about it, because it is a test. Marriage is definitely a test. I think a lot of people go into marriage thinking that this is going to keep me sane and keep me safe and get rid of all the badness out there. And yes, it does. But it also, some shaitan lives within a marriage, I think, or he tries to get right in there. And it's definitely a test. It's whether you can come out of that test stronger or whether you crumble. It's definitely a very important thing to talk about again. And you seem like a very intelligent and kind-hearted sister, and any man would be fortunate enough to marry you and call you his wife. So inshallah, you will find men queuing up soon enough.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to me today. It was so nice to get to know you better and to talk about these important issues. And like I said, your content is really like wholesome and good and nice to see. And it's good to see you talking about topics that many people don't talk about. And we definitely need a lot more of that. And it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, sister. I'm so glad that you came on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation, and may Allah bless you in your endeavors. May Allah bless you in your business. Thank you so much for having interviews like this, hearing perspectives from people, and just being open enough to like give other sisters and brothers like a platform to share.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm really glad that you came on. Please stay in touch. It would be good to get in touch again and talk about more issues. But thank you so much for coming on. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you everyone for watching. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam.